Have you ever engaged in dialogue about religious versus spiritual? Today, we're going to try to understand being religious and spiritual. Stay tuned. I'm Bishop Johnathan Alvarado, and I'm so grateful that you have tuned into my vlog on today. I want to talk to you for just a few moments on the second installment, part 2, of what it means to be both religious and spiritual. I want to explore it from this perspective because, you know, we might as well put the elephant right in the center of the room. We might as well identify it. The biggest challenge that most people that I talk to have with this whole diatribe between religion and spirituality is the impediment to many people's minds of the church. This man-made institution that interferes with one's personal spirituality. And I'd like to offer the perspective that perhaps unapologetically, I would say, the church is notoriously a human institution. The church is by no means a divine institution that descended from heaven and floated down on a cloud with all of its heavenly and godlike perfections. That is not the case. The church is a human institution, as are all institutionalized religious practices. But I believe that the institution of the church and the religious piety of the church and the practices of the church and other religious systems do not preclude them from their inherent spirituality. As a matter of fact, I contend that being religious is an expression, a form, an outworking of one's personal spirituality, one's corporate spirituality, one's overall arcing spirituality. You see, precious dears, part of the challenge with those of us in the West, with those of us in this Western Hemisphere, this Americanized culture, part of our challenge is the challenge of individualism. Hyper-individualistic ways of being in the world that cause us to see institutional, corporate ways of being in the world as anathema or something to be avoided. Something that diminishes in some wise my personal pursuit of God and my personal piety, my personal individualistic and perhaps even stylized version of being spiritual. I mean, I hear it all the time as a bishop in the Lord's church and as a pastor, and as people talking to me just in passing and in conversation, people that are not religiously devoted or devout or pious in any way, and they say to me those very words, well, you know, I'm spiritual, I'm just not religious. And the truth of the matter is that those two don't have to be mutually exclusive. And the church, by reason of its institutional nature, has preserved the spiritual practice of Christianity, and other religious institutions have preserved their various spiritualities because of the institutional rubric, the institutional framework in which that spirituality can be nurtured, that spirituality can grow, and that spirituality can burgeon. Hear me on this. I am of the strong contention that human beings are inherently social creatures. We were created by our Creator with the inherent need, desire, and symbiotic notions of living together in community. We need each other. We're bound together in common cords. Institutions that foster and support, perpetuate, and rubricize religious pietistic practices help us to be able to negotiate living together in community, as is, in my estimation, our inherent design, within the framework of the practice of those religious practices and pietistic ways, to be able to bring honor and glory to the deity, the God that we say we serve, and to bring uplift to the community to which we are a part. I think it's important that we recognize that these two are not mutually exclusive. And my call for many of you is to return to the institution, return to the church. Come back to the place that nurtured you to faith, that gave you the inclinations that you could actually have a relationship with the God of the universe. I want to encourage you to return to the kind of religious practices, the repetitious practices that nurtured you, that disciplined you, and that helped you come to understand the God of the universe, that same God, is still imminent enough to be concerned about you and I and the way that we engage with life in the world. I said it in the first installment that to be religious about anything is an expression of devotion to it. It in actuality is, in my estimation, are a sign of one's devotion to that matter. When one practices the piano religiously, it is a sign of the devotion to the craft, devotion to the art, a devotion perhaps even to the God who gave the gift. When one is completely overtaken in the artistic pursuit of painting or the intellectual pursuit of reading and writing or teaching, when one is engulfed and sees that as an act of devotional piety, perhaps that becomes an expression of worship. I say that to you to say that to deepen our existence as human beings, we ought to practice religious practices. We ought to move away from this notion of just being spiritual for a spiritual sake, because in very real ways in our culture, in our society, that is an apologetic for just being individualistic. I do this my way, and I don't have anybody or any institution or any rules or dogmas to tell me how I need to be spiritual. And while I agree that spirituality is deeply personal, it's also profoundly communal in its nature. I believe that the Lord Jesus Christ, the head of the church, calls us together in community within the confines of the imperfect church, so that way we may be both religious and spiritual. Hey, if you're deriving any value out of this, I want you to like and subscribe to this, my YouTube channel. I'm going to make more installments on this particular topic and others, and I hope that you'll track with me. Hit the notifications tab if you've gotten any value out of it, so that way you'll be abreast of when we're making new content, we're posting new content. And if you're really interested in spirituality, particularly spirituality of the Pentecostal sort, stay tuned for this message. Hey, this is Dr. Johnathan Alvarado, and I'm cordially and personally inviting you to a symposium on Pentecostal spirituality being hosted by the Greater Atlanta Theological Seminary and Global Pentecostal Perspectives on Pentecost weekend, Friday, May 21st and Saturday, May 22nd from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time online. I want to encourage you to register and be a part of this life-changing event. We have wonderful guests, guest lecturers, and guest interlocutors that weekend in the persons of Dr. Estrelda Alexander of the William Seymour Foundation in Bowie, Maryland, the author of Blackfire, A History of Afro-Pentecostalism, and Dr. Ravi Waddell, New Testament scholar, early church historian, Pentecostal scholar, in Southeastern University, Lakeland, Florida. They too will be with us on that weekend, instructing, encouraging, answering questions, and guiding us into this spirituality. You do realize that Pentecostal spirituality is the fastest growing spirituality of all the Christian traditions around the planet. You and I should be together on that weekend to dialogue, to discuss, to pray, and to hear from the Lord. Don't miss a symposium on Pentecostal spirituality. Pentecost weekend, Friday, May 21st, Saturday, May 22nd, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. both days. You may register at gatseminary.org. That's gatseminary.org. Click the registration button and you can register, and we'll be together on Pentecost weekend for a symposium on Pentecostal spirituality. I hope to see you there. Well, I know that blessed you, and I know that you are preparing now to register for the Symposium on Pentecostal Spirituality. It's right along the lines of this conversation that we're having even on tonight. I want to encourage you and invite you to join us in that time. Well, thanks again for being a part of this vlog, and I hope to see you in the very near future.